Ghost, you've been pretty busy.
I sure have been. Yeah, busy as always, but definitely in some different ways. Been traveling, and last night I finished recording the audiobook of my book also, which is really exciting.
Really?
And yeah, so
Oh,
everything's really, really happening. I'm in kind of the fun stages now.
that's awesome. I mean, obviously we'll
Yeah.
get to it, but are you still doing because the first podcast you were on, episode 39, we're
hmm
talking about you being an esthetician. Are you still doing that or
Yeah, so I actually still work full time for the same nonprofit.
Oh, okay.
And I still am seeing my regular clients once a week, but I've definitely, yeah, it's been a lot to juggle and to find time for everything. But I am still an esthetician, yes.
Oh, cool. So like
hmm
with I guess pandemic, all that stuff, it seems to be slowing down. Fingers crossed. Have you noticed, and
hmm
especially with summer coming back, I'm sure people are, you know, trying to get their skin right and all that stuff. Like, is it picking back
Yeah,
up, or is it? I mean, I know you said you have your regulars,
yeah,
but
yeah. I definitely feel like as soon as, we would go out of restrictions before we'd go back into them,
yeah.
people were dying to get their skincare in, and I think people were really missing physical touch. I
Oh yeah,
think a lot of people, like, it's just so important to have these wellness rituals for ourselves, and I think a lot of people, like, it was just neglected. And so yeah, people have definitely been almost appreciating the necessity that skincare is more now than ever.
yeah. And then so kind of leading into you, well, writing your book, it kind of was sparked
hmm
with your trip to it was Ireland, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So with that was at the beginning of the pandemic. I think I was looking on your Instagram and stuff like that, and it was at the beginning, right?
Yeah, kind of. So I think you and I talked in April.
Mm-hmm.
By May, I had been laid off temporarily
Oh,
from my
okay.
job because of the pandemic, and I was in a pretty bad car accident.
Oh,
And this was in August, and then right after that is when all of the wildfires broke out here.
okay,
So
yeah.
it
Oh, wow.
was a really crazy season, and kind of the main reason I really started looking at my bucket list more.
Okay,
So yeah, that was in April, and then I mean, sorry, in August, and then by Thanksgiving, I had made my decision to move to Ireland in the spring.
damn. Real quick, so
Yeah,
you're all regarding the accident. You're all good? I mean, it seems to be.
yeah, yeah. I'm in physical therapy, and it was really, really scary. I'm super lucky to be alive, and it's just kind of reignited my love for life and adventure.
That's
And
awesome. Well, I mean,
yeah,
not the fact that you got in an accident, but like it's kind of a bummer. Sometimes we need certain things to kind of re-spark
yeah, to shake
stuff.
things up in our lives and yeah, make us
Yeah.
reevaluate a little bit.
Well, it's good that you're doing well, and physical therapy is. I'm assuming that's working out well for you. So it's good to hear that you're
Yeah.
doing good.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Ireland. I mean, why Ireland? I mean, I remember seeing something like maybe it was on your stories or something. I can't remember. It's so hard
hmm
to keep track with so many, Instagram, TikTok, Reels, all this stuff. But like,
Totally.
booked a one-way ticket, didn't know really much of anything besides I'm sure you did some information, but you didn't know anyone. I mean,
Yeah. So
what, why? Yeah.
I've never been to Ireland. I don't know anyone in Ireland. I have a little bit of Irish heritage, but I have just always, since I was really, really little, have had this really strong calling to go there.
Hmm.
And yeah, me and my brothers, like back when we were homeschooled, we lived on the river, and we would be making little fire pits in the backyard with our friends and dancing to Irish music around a fire and making tea. And yeah, it's just this weird, like, deep rooted kind of thing for me.
Huh.
So when I decided to go, it was extra tricky because we were in the middle of the pandemic. So not only did I not
Yeah.
know anyone there, but there was not a lot of information online as to where they were at with regulations.
hmm
So I went into it all, expecting the worst and pretty blindly, and had to navigate a lot of that from
Interesting.
scratch.
Where were
hmm
they at the? Oh, let's see here. I know certain places outside the U.S. Like once you were there, like
hmm
I forget where. I don't know. I wish I remembered. Like London and stuff. They,
Yeah,
allowed people to travel in, but then there was a time where,
a
you
quarantine
couldn't.
period.
Yeah, and you to
Yeah.
leave there to go back was all tricky and stuff like that. So was there a point in
hmm
time while you were there that it was like, okay, well, they're starting to lock down a little bit more. So like I'm actually here.
Yeah. So in hindsight, I honestly had no idea what I was walking into. And I took my COVID test. I actually was lucky to be fully vaccinated by
Okay.
the time I was leaving. So I felt pretty safe. But I had no idea like how fully locked down they were. Um, there was not a restaurant open
Ooh,
during the whole duration, not even for outdoor dining.
damn.
I never set foot in a pub.
Wait,
So
the entire time you lived there.
the entire time. They
What?
their vaccine rollout was definitely slower,
Okay.
and their regulations were very strict. So
Damn.
I had a different Irish experience than a lot of people would have. But
Yeah.
the really cool thing about it was at all of these beautiful castles and the cliffs of Moher and just these beautiful locations. I was literally the only person there.
So I could
So I
imagine.
got like front row
Yeah.
seats.
I mean, yeah, it's a bummer that restaurants and pubs and stuff are closed because I'm sure you'd, like to go out and experience that part of, Ireland. But I feel
hmm
like with them being closed, you're almost forced to kind of go and see more things because you're
Yeah.
like, well, I can't go to the restaurants or pubs. I'll go check out this
hmm
castle that like
Totally.
maybe
Yeah, I
normally,
think it would
yeah,
have been really easy to kind of like get comfortable having, finding my local spots I hung out at and whatnot. But
yeah.
yeah, I really did settle in, but I also had that freedom and flexibility to really get outside and explore and really see the beautiful landscapes of Ireland, the ocean. It was really, really incredible.
How long were you there?
I was there for close to 4 months.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. hmm
So going and I guess, living there, one way ticket, you don't the crazy thing is you didn't know anyone. So like going there, did you like before you left, did you secure like your place to live? I'm sure you did, but like I'm gonna
Yeah.
pay 4 months rent or how did that kind of work out?
Totally. So between my decision to go and the date of my flight, my life was a total shit show, which you'll read about in my book. There's some pretty funny, chaotic travel stories in there and
Oh,
whatnot.
perfect.
But yeah, I did as much research as possible. I bought some books on Ireland. I definitely researched the top crime rates there. Like I tried to be as prepared as possible,
Mm.
just to like learn a little bit more about the culture before I went. And I actually took the opportunity to look into work exchange programs. So
Oh,
I ended up ahead of time planning to live and work at a hostel.
okay.
So I worked there 15 hours a week in exchange for housing and laundry and
Oh,
breakfast, which was really
damn.
nice.
That's a sweet
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
I'm sure
It
that
was really
helped
awesome.
with the, well, I guess how did the hostel thing work with the whole pandemic going on? Like, I'm sure that must have been
Yeah.
tricky, right?
Yeah. So the hospital usually, I mean, sorry, the hostel usually has a capacity of about 200 and they were down to 80. So they had to cut back on some things, but it was more like this giant hotel. It was this big 3-story hostel. So there was
Oh,
still a
cool.
lot of work to be done as far as sanitizing everything goes and yeah, keeping the guests as safe as possible. So they were still accepting volunteers. The timing of it actually worked out really perfectly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. So when you were there, like, I guess in what order? Because you're saying like, oh, bucket list, like, you got temporarily laid off from, your esthetician job, and you're like, okay, cool, bucket list time. Was the book part of the bucket list, or was that when you were there, you're like, oh, maybe I do have this on my list?
Yeah. So the book was part of the bucket list. So yeah, I was laid off from my nonprofit job and the salons were all closed. So I was not giving facials either.
Okay,
So when the accident happened and the fires broke out, that's why I was able to dedicate a lot of time to volunteering, which was super awesome. But at
very
that point,
nice.
I realized the two things that, I really wanted to do were to write a book and to live in Ireland. So I was like, how do I make these things happen?
Yeah.
There was a lot of logistics to figure out with work because I actually ended up getting hired back at the end of August. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, it was definitely just a whirlwind, but I was really determined to make it all work.
Yeah. While you were there and like living in the hostel and doing all that, did you start the writing process there or when did you start it?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I ended up starting it about a month before I left
Oh, okay.
because my life was just in shambles. I had moved out of my house, put everything in storage. I was couch surfing. I was working full time still. I was trying to make time to see everyone. I was in therapy. It was just so much going on, trying to
Yeah.
get my last facial
Hectic.
clients in. So I actually started writing then just to kind of encapsulate this crazy time in my life. And then once I got to Ireland, I would just spend hours and hours late at night in the hostel commons, drinking tea and writing a bunch.
Honestly, that sounds very awesome. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah,
my imagination is not exactly what it was, but I can imagine like, well, I know you're kind of
it
decor
was.
style,
Yeah.
right? I've been in houses you've lived in, and I can imagine it
Hmm.
being like nicely dimly lit, and you're just there with the
Oh
tea.
yeah.
One of
Yeah,
those like,
I'm all about aesthetic for sure. And yeah, just picturing like when I thought about writing my book, I could not think of a better place to write than in Ireland with the rain, and it has such this cozy energy to it
hmm.
that's really unexplainable, but it's really hard. I think it would be hard not to write a book living in Ireland.
Oh yeah. Well,
There's just so much inspiration around.
it's luckily so I've been there once on tour and I mean unfortunately it was
Hmm.
not 4 months. It was I think like a day in Ireland,
Were
Dublin I
you in
believe,
Dublin?
and then we were
Cool.
in, oh shoot, where were we? Somewhere not too far. I'm blanking
Hmm.
on the name, but luckily both of those days were sunny and everything. But I can imagine they do cozy well because it's always very gloomy and rainy.
Totally.
I mean, I'm sure that someone maybe who lives there besides you is probably like, "What are you talking about? It's beautiful, it's sunny." So I don't know. I
Totally.
just
That was the funniest part for me. So I love cold weather and I love rain and I also love California, but I'm not like a summer sunshine person at all. So I was very much looking forward to being there.
oh yeah,
But anytime I would tell someone I was from California, they would get this look on their face that was just like so longing. And it's just funny. The grass is always greener.
right.
And yeah, and the other thing that was really, really funny is it was freezing cold. Like I've never been somewhere so cold in my life. And if the sun, like it would be raining all day and the sun would peek through the trees for like 10 minutes and people would be like ripping their shirts off in the middle of the
Oh my god.
park, jumping in the freezing cold Atlantic Ocean. Like these people really, really love their sun and took full advantage whenever they could.
Oh yeah. And well, I can
Yeah.
imagine kind of going within the thing of, restaurants and pubs were closed. Now it's
Mhm.
even, you're not really wanting to go outside too much, especially, towards nighttime and stuff like that. So like
Yeah.
even more like hunker down with a big ass blanket, hot tea,
Hmm.
and just write for hours. I can
Totally.
imagine that for sure.
Yeah, which is why I think the lockdown there was really, really extra tough on people because, in California, we had the luxury of still having all these amazing outdoor activities we could do and whatnot.
Yeah.
And Ireland has all of that to offer too, but the weather is just, yeah, it's a little bit trickier to work with for
Yeah.
sure.
I can imagine. You
Hmm.
said you started writing about a month before your trip. What part of that, or let's see here. From the moment you started writing, did you know that this was like your idea of like, I want this to be published, I want to do audiobook, like I want this to be like a full-fledged, a book, or like that first month or so or week, however long it was, or was it kind of just like a, yeah, we'll write a book
Um,
and see, where it goes.
I was all in
Okay, cool.
because that's just my personality. I'm very goal oriented. So I knew, that's the reason I started friends and my followers before I left because I knew that would, make me held accountable for it. So while I was there, I was telling people I was writing a book and yeah, I knew I was going to see it through. And strangely enough, yesterday was actually my 1 year anniversary of returning from Ireland. And it's the
Oh,
day my book officially became published and I finished my audiobook. So
that's
I'm
awesome.
very, yeah, there was, writer's block is real and it was really hard sometimes, but I had these kind of seasons of a lot of inspiration where I would just push through and write as much as I could. And
Hmm.
the past few months, especially like in the home stretch of it all, I was writing just odd hours into the night. Yeah, just so busy with it, really wanting to see it through and get it done.
So with writing the book, did you have like a deadline? I don't know I don't know anything about publishing and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
like, did you have talked with a publisher beforehand and like, okay, we want it like a deadline. You need to write it by this
Yeah.
time, all that stuff. Like, how was that?
So it's my first time. So there was so much to figure out about writing a book and publishing a book. And when I was in Ireland, I actually got a massage from this woman who was from Canada.
Okay.
And she gave me this book that she had written that was kind of about office ergonomics. And it looked really great. And we were talking, and I was like, wait, you wrote this? Like, how did you publish it? And she had worked with this company in the UK, and she said they were great. So she wrote down on this tiny scrap of paper an email address for me. And I tried not to lose it. And I just, stuck it somewhere in my luggage, kind of forgot about it. And then months later, after I was home and still kind of working on the book, I kind of remembered it and I found it in one of my journals and reached out. And yeah, he kind of walked me through the process and I ended up sending him a sample and he said he wanted to take it on. So I set deadlines for myself.
Okay.
There was no other barriers or anything. So I really had to be diligent about like, okay, this is the day I'm finishing it. I want it in people's hands, by my 28th birthday, like, or 29th birthday. Yeah, I had to be really, really like on it and specific with myself. I work well with deadlines.
Nice. And I can imagine, having the deadline, regardless if it's for, well, maybe it helped that it was your own personal deadline, but like if it was very, very open ended, who knows, like towards the end, you might just keep riding and then it's like starts to turn into like maybe not so
Yeah.
much of important stuff. You
Yes.
know what I
So that
mean?
was really interesting because it's one of those things where it's never really going to be finished. And at one point, you have to just hand it over.
Hmm.
So the reason I gave myself deadlines was because I know myself and I'm such a perfectionist and overanalyzer and people pleaser. And the longer I had my book, the more time I had to go through it and read it and change everything and tweak it. And yeah, I knew I needed to get to a point where I had the most awesome editor, Nicola Souza. She's incredible. So it was so nice to be able to write freely without worrying about my grammar and whatnot because she was so on it. And I knew I needed to kind of have a tentative date on the calendar for myself. Otherwise, I would be working on it and tweaking it for the next, I don't know, 5 years if I didn't
Yeah,
just
right.
hand it over.
What was
So
her
it feels
name?
really good.
Sorry.
Her name's Nicola Souza.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure
she's
I got that right.
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, she's a lifelong friend of mine. And once I got to Ireland and kind of realized I needed to start thinking about an editor, I put the word out and she reached out. And so I was able to send her chapters, like one chapter at a time from Ireland and hop on a call with her once in a while. And once I got back to the States, we were able to meet up and do some fun brainstorming and mapping together. And so she's made this process really, really fun for me.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
since we're talking about, editors and stuff like that, your book titled Claiming My Baggage. Awesome. By the way, I love the artwork too. It's
Isn't
you
it cool?
100%. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah,
um
real quick shout out for the artwork. My really good friend Julia Rockowitz from college. I She's an amazing illustrator and I just had this feeling that, if I was going to go the illustration route, she needed to do it.
yeah.
And so I reached out to her, I told her the name of it, and then yeah, I kind of told her like a brief vision and she sent it back to me and it was perfect. And then my brother George Chadwick helped me figure out all the colors and then the publishing company took it from there and put it all together.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. Definitely. I'm excited
Thank
to
you.
I'll definitely get a copy. I'm going to read it for sure. um
Awesome.
but what I was kind of going at with the editor, your book, your Instagram post I'm looking at right now, it starts off with saying, my memoir, well, your memoir. So with
Hmm.
editing or an editor, is that more on the, commas, periods here, mainly like that kind of stuff? Or is it like
Yeah,
going through and being like, well, this section can kind of get cut out? But I guess I'm asking that because it's a memoir, it's your story
totally.
about the stuff you've lived. How can an editor truly, you know, pick apart
Yeah,
something that you personally have gone through?
that is such a good question. In my case, I was so lucky to have an editor that really knew me because I really valued her input on more than just, grammar. I really wanted to know how it felt to read it and if it felt true to my voice throughout. And yeah, I was kind of clear about my message that I wanted to be conveyed throughout the book and my tone. And she did a really good job of kind of giving input whenever needed. It was super appreciated. I would run something by her. I would write something out and be like, oof, I don't know about this. I'm feeling uncomfortable putting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And she would kind of talk me through that process and we'd come to a decision together. So she was very, very involved in the process, maybe more than most editors would be in a memoir because I knew her.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that because I think the book turned out just 100% better with her insight.
Nice. Yeah, that answers my question definitely. Because I was
Hmm.
like, I didn't know, I know
Yeah,
you had a publisher, but editor and stuff. I'm like, I'm sure someone had to check it for grammar, stuff like
right.
that. So like people can read it properly how you want it
Totally.
to be. But like, I was curious. I was like, well, how is someone gonna just
It's a
like,
really interesting
yeah.
question. I would be curious to know how it's gone for other people with their memoirs. It's so interesting.
Well, yeah, but like you said, you got lucky and you had someone that knew you. So like they were almost just making sure the people on the outside will get how you are through like a different
Hmm.
lens and not just like your own words, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, and that I'm not withholding too much or holding myself back too much. It was
yeah.
really nice to be pushed a little and then, she's like, "Okay, why aren't we covering this topic really? What's going on?" And then I would have kind of a good breakthrough moment and once I get writing, I feel really good about it, but sometimes I need just that little extra push and motivation.
Yeah. So with her being a part of it, were there certain things that like, I mean, either you excelled at and you're like, when she and the publisher looked at it, they're like, oh, this is great. And then on the other note, there's like, okay, well, for me, it would be like the grammar police would probably have my ass, Like, were there
Oh yeah.
things that you're great at? They're
Well,
like, good. And then it's like, whoa, hey.
totally.
Oh.
Definitely. So one thing that's interesting is I've done a lot of blog writing throughout my life.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
so writing a book is very, very different. My blogs are usually pretty concise, a little more artsy, and they convey what I'm trying to in much fewer words. So I had to push myself as a writer to really just kind of expand on that and work on my descriptive strong points. So that was a challenge for me, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, and that I pushed myself to kind of just go into more details. But yeah, I would say what I think I do really well is I write in a way that really, really conveys my voice. Like I think when you read it, you're gonna feel like you're just sitting and talking with me.
Okay.
And then yeah, I think the harder part for me is like the filling in and needing it to be longer and just a little more extensive.
So did you maybe bring out the dictionary and be like, I need to find some witty words or something,
Yeah,
like
totally. I really tried to, put on my intellectual author pants and really step it up. And it was so funny because my brother Henry Chadwick, he's an engineer and he's been recording my audiobook for me.
Oh, cool.
And
Got all the
throughout
hookups.
it, I've been so lucky with my circle around me. They've been awesome. And so there was so many words in there and not their vocabulary that we had to re-record them so many times so that I could pronounce them correctly. So that was very funny. Like, oh my gosh, the word particularly, we probably recorded 15 times
Oh no.
in one sentence because I could not get it. So there was elements like that it was funny because on paper it looks so good and then I'm like, wait, now I need to say all of this out loud. That's a little tricky.
So I guess, yeah, with the audiobook, when there's certain things, because I mean, you could be reading, I mean, I've heard many podcasts where like honestly it was probably Joe Rogan. Let's be honest. Where he's had an author on, and he's almost asked them like I think it was I forget his name, but he has a show called Meat Eater, something Ranella or something like that. But he wrote a book, and then they hired a voice actor to read for the audiobook, and Joe was you know very confused on why he didn't read it himself, because you can
Hmm.
portray. I mean, you wrote the book, you know how it reads.
Yeah, every
It's
tone of every
yeah, it's
sentence.
gonna
Yeah.
sound better, but it's going into the thing you were saying that certain words you have to do a couple takes, because it's just you know talking sometimes for a very long time
Hmm.
is you stumble your
Yeah.
words and it's difficult. But when you're reading it for the audiobook, is there maybe sentences that you alter in a way because it just reading it versus hearing it changes?
Yeah, I would say something out loud and then I would realize I kind of want to retake that, say it in a different tone, or like give it a little more power or emphasis.
Okay,
So it was really interesting and different hearing it out loud.
so
And
almost
it
if
was,
okay, sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say it was so challenging. And I feel so proud of myself now. And we got a lot better as time went on, but it was such a learning curve for me too, because I don't really talk out loud a lot. I have a very quiet voice, as you probably know. And I don't know, I'm just more of an observer. I don't talk a lot unless I'm with like my most intimate people.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge to push myself out there and kind of have to perform in that way.
Huh. I could, yeah, I don't know. I know I have the podcast. It's very different. And, sometimes if I'm lucky, I can have someone in person, and that's one thing. And then doing
Hmm.
solo ones, it's all, I'm kind of the same way as you. Like if I'm with my close friends or something, I'll talk and have fun and yada, yada, yada. But like outside of that realm, I'm kind of more just to myself. And man, I can only imagine doing like an audiobook for something I wrote. I would be just
Oh my
like
gosh, are you kidding me?
picking it
You
apart.
do it on, I feel like what you do is even harder because you do it so regularly, you do it so well. And yeah, I feel like you've really found your consistent voice with it. It's super cool to see.
Well, thank you. And well, I will say
Yeah.
and at the beginning, and I would say that, you know, from episode to episode, depending on who I have on, like I even notice and I'm trying to get better at it, but sometimes, with, one friend, you might be talking a certain way, and then you have someone else on, maybe they have a little bit more of a country twang, or like they're maybe a little bit more on, for lack of a better word, on the ghetto side. They got a little hood to them. You kind of change
Hmm.
up your inflection and the words you
Yeah.
use. As I was, my dad at the
Right.
beginning, he
And
was
just like,
like,
I'm sure the pace of the interview too.
yeah, of course. So like at the beginning, even my dad noticed it. He was like, hey, like when you were talking to this person, you sounded like you, but this other person, you don't even sound really like yourself. So like it's one of those where it's like as you're talking, to try and make sure you're still who you are as a person, and you're not changing it
Yeah.
for this interview or solo episodes and stuff. So like when
Hmm.
you're writing your book, I mean, trying to make sure that one, you're being true to your stories and stuff, but like because you want it to be, a professional book. It's published. It's going to be in people's hands and in their ears listening to it. Trying to make sure that no matter what chapter, what sentence, whatever you're talking about, you're still sounding like you. This shit's
Yeah.
hard.
It's really hard, definitely. And I imagine with interacting with more people in the process, it's harder. And I am lucky that I'm, reading my own words from my brain and my inner voice,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that makes it a lot easier to really
Yeah.
have it displayed the way that I want and received by people the way that I always imagined it to be.
Yeah. Earlier, you were talking about writer's block, and it's real. I wanted to make sure I asked this because I was just curious. When
Hmm.
you were going through those points of, you know, point in time where you were going through writer's block, like how was it, just kind of keep writing and scratching things out, or like take a step away? Like, what did you do to kind of get over the writer's block?
Yeah, it was hard. And I feel like it just never works with your schedule. Like when I was in Ireland, my job is amazing and they let me go down to part time and fully remote. So I was working on
Awesome.
California time with that. And then I had my volunteer hours at the hostel. And then, whatever window I had was when I had time to write. But, the inspiration was not always there. So for me, what works best is taking a step back from it and not forcing it because I really wanted this whole experience to be fun. Like I really
Yeah.
wanted it to be enjoyable and not forced. And I think that's why it turned out the way it did with my truest voice coming through because I wasn't afraid to take a pause. Once I got back to California, I had a really busy, fun summer and I honestly didn't write probably for 3 months straight.
Oh, wow.
And it stressed me out like crazy because I still was telling people, yeah, I'm writing a book. Like, and I inside was like, oh my God, I like
Haven't seen
don't
you
know how I'm
write.
ever gonna finish this. Like, what the heck, Hazel? Why did you publicize this? Yeah, I think I almost will say like with writing a memoir, there was some hard stuff I went through over the past year.
Hmm.
And some of those darker times were really when I feel like the best writer was pulled out of me
Hmm.
because I had to really just go a little bit deeper and really get in touch with my inner voice and kind of those fundamental things that make me me.
Damn. Yeah, I can imagine. Like, it's great that those harder, darker times were some of the best writing because I can imagine maybe on the opposite side, it could be so hard that it's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to write
Yeah.
about this. And I'm sure had that,
Hmm.
but, you do get some of the realest shit when you're
It's so
battling
true.
some
Yeah.
stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. There was some stuff that I was battling when I got back. And there was this chapter about kind of the darker stuff and childhood and whatnot that I hadn't really gone there yet with. And going through this experience I went with when I got home, or I went through when I got home, um, it kind of pushed me to reconnect with my childhood self, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that.
And I almost felt like I remembered details more thoroughly and I was able to really articulate them better because I was in a similar dark place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. So coming out of, writing, your when is it? So let's see here. Available for pre-order June 15th.
Yep, 1 week from today.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Hmm.
Um,
Thank you.
now that it's pretty much that part is done, I don't know what you have plans for, like, other media stuff and trying maybe
Hmm.
interviews and whatnot, but basically being done, what, like, looking through it all and experiencing it all, like, is there something that you came out on the other side knowing about yourself a little bit more? And I'm sure you might have said it in the book, so
Yeah.
don't spill the beans too much, but
Yeah. Um, without spoiling too much, I think I really just got to know myself better. Taking this time to travel alone was huge, and I had never done it before. And it was a challenge, but I think you'll see throughout the book. Um, I feel like I really develop as a person, and I find my confidence, and yeah, I just get kind of truer and truer to myself throughout it.
Nice. I could imagine. I mean, you were saying stuff, childhood, coming back, like all this stuff. So
Hmm.
you really get to kind of, while you're writing it, you're, experiencing those things again. But then once you're
Yeah,
done and then you're doing the audiobook version of it, you get to even just step back a little bit more and
yeah,
take it
and
all in even more. I'm sure like you're not even done
totally. Just see it all
experiencing it
come to
all.
fruition. It was cool. I had never read it, from start to finish. I was always going back and forth with random chapters and edits and that kind of a thing. So it was cool to sit and read it start to finish. And it was a cool experience for my brother and I too,
Yeah.
because yeah, just reflecting on things. And, we had a really good heart to heart after. And he's like, there's things in there that I had no idea about. And yeah, I think it brought us closer. And although I'm probably going to lose my shit as soon as it's in everyone's hands for real. It's going to feel super vulnerable. I think ultimately, yeah, I hope it just makes people feel less alone. And I think I will feel more connected with people after they've read it.
Oh yeah. I mean, what everyone wants is, well, obviously you were saying like regarding, your esthetician work, like with the pandemic, everyone was longing for that physical touch, whether it be
Hmm.
as simple as a hug or a facial or something like that. Everyone was really, really wanting and needing it. And I
Yeah.
mean, on a larger scale with books, people want, I mean, either they want the super steamy, crazy,
Yeah.
novels of love and all that,
Hmm.
but, you're saying you felt very vulnerable and you're going to get a little, crazy when people are actually, holding it in their hands and stuff. But I think that's why it might do, not might, sorry, it's going to do very well because, you're being very vulnerable and
Yeah.
it's very real. So I think people are going to, especially, the times that we're going in, people
Hmm.
are definitely going to
Yeah.
need that. So I think it's
I
going to
think
be
so.
a
Yeah,
good
it's
read.
definitely extremely real. It does have the fun, steamy romance. It has the
Ooh,
shitty stuff. It has the chaos. It has every aspect. And I really think there's something in there for everyone.
that's awesome. How many
Yeah.
chapters is it? Or pages, chapters,
Yeah.
all of that?
It ended up being 21 chapters.
Nice.
I think it's just under 200 pages with the dimensions we ended up choosing. Um, and yeah, so 21 chapters, an introduction on top of that. And some chapters are nice and long, some are kind of more fun and lighthearted and bloggy.
Okay.
Um, but I think it ties together very well. I'm proud of it.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So with this first experience kind of in the books, do you have plans for another one?
Yes. I mean,
Obviously, don't say everything because let's
no,
get
I
the
won't. I
people the
don't
first
worry.
one.
I have nothing yet. Don't worry. I just know myself, and I think one of the reasons I was almost scared to finish this is because I already checked living in Ireland off my bucket list, and then publishing this book, like that was my other big one. So I'm like more at this place right now where I'm like, what is next? Like, how do I top that? And that's the perfectionist in me and the overachiever really. But I know soon enough it'll come to me, my next kind of big goal. And yeah, I'll probably just really go with that full throttle, whatever it is. And yeah, we'll be on the podcast again, I'm sure at some
Oh, I
point.
would, yeah, of course, I would love that.
Yeah.
If you
Hmm.
don't mind me asking, what are some of the other things that are on your bucket list?
Yeah.
If you can, off the
Gosh.
top of your head,
Yeah.
if
I
you can
mean,
think of any.
off the top of my head, the first thing that comes to mind, and I'm scared to say it out loud because I feel like I'll have to really do it now,
Uh-oh.
but I would love to work with gorillas,
Oh,
maybe
damn.
in Africa.
I was not
Um,
expecting that.
I,
There's a book right
I
there.
mean, by now, I'm like the most random person ever. I feel like my life has always been, I just am really interested in a lot of different things. So that's like another weird creative dream in my life that hopefully there'll be a season for at some point. What else? I have a million other places I'd love to travel to. I would have loved to travel around Europe, but it just wasn't the time for it when I was there with restrictions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a lot more travel to do. And yeah, I obviously just have, personal goals and whatnot, but I've been really excited to release this and then just kind of see what doors it opens up for me.
Oh, I think it's going to open up a ton. And I mean, you knocked off one of your bucket list items, but now another one's going to be added, and you probably got the itch, and
Yeah.
you're ready for the next one soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, something's coming. There's a storm coming for sure.
Oh yeah. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Let's see here, because I'm sure we could keep talking, but like I said, I kind of wanted to keep it
Mhm.
short and sweet a little bit, just
Yeah,
because I wanted
totally.
to hear a little bit more
I've
about
spent
the
I've
book.
spent the last 3 nights talking for hours, so my voice
Oh
can only
yeah.
take so much anyway.
Oh yeah. I guess to kind of close us out, just I know we kind of brought up some of the bits and pieces of when it's out and stuff like that, but just kind of
Hmm.
tell people title, all that fun stuff, when it's out, when they can get it,
Yeah,
where they can get it, all that.
sure. So pre-orders will become available in 1 week from now. And I
I
have a
think you
link
cut
for
out
it
there
on
one
my,
second. Yeah,
oh,
start
sorry.
over. Sorry
Oh,
about that.
aiming my bag. And in 1 week from today, it'll be available for pre-order strictly through my website. So if you follow me on Instagram at Hazel Chadwick, that is where I'll be posting the link where you can pre-order. If you are in Santa Cruz or in the area and able to come to my book launch, there will be a spot on my website to specify that you'd like to pick up your copy and get it signed at my launch in Santa Cruz
I
on
want
July
to
17th.
I want a
And
signed
then all
copy.
of Yeah, come to it. It'll be so fun. Try to get your cousins there too.
Yeah, right.
That'd be really fun.
They're gonna see
Um,
books? No way.
I know, no way.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that. I'm actually going full Irish pub style. I haven't
Ooh.
totally announced the location yet, but yeah, when you order the book, you'll get an invite to my book launch. And if you're, out of the area and not able to attend, it'll be shipped out to you the morning of my launch because, yeah, I still want you to be, one of the first readers before it's available worldwide.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yep. Great.
Well,
Well, thank you
Hazel.
so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And I'm super stoked to
Anytime.
get my hands on one of these books and start reading. I'm such a
Thank you.
terrible reader, but I think I can do it.
I think it's a pretty fun and easy read. Or there's always an audiobook coming shortly after the launch too. So always an option.
Awesome.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Anyways, oh my goodness. It's like, when someone calls you and it does the end and accept, hold and accept.
Yes.
It's always
I know,
the
it's
wrong one.
confusing.
I'm always doing the wrong one. So I'm just going to let
I
that do
feel
its
you.
thing real quick. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Hazel, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super stoked. And for everyone listening, make sure you follow her. I will have all of the links to her Instagram and all that in the show notes so you don't have to go searching around. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank
Right
you
on.
so much.
Of course.
I appreciate you. All
I
right.
will
Take care,
appreciate you
Danny.
too. I will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
The Daily Podcast. The Daily Podcast.